Hello, this is Gary from VR Roundtable here with another deep dive, and in this video I wanted to just quickly talk about how virtual reality can play a role in the future of art and design and what role that might be. Now, the world of art and design is quite diverse. You've got things like just painting, drawing, but then it can expand into design packages, computer-aided design especially, but also then you've got things like sound, music is also categorized as art, and it's all interesting to think about how these things can be influenced, how virtual reality can influence these mediums, and bring a new way of doing each of these things. So, at the moment VR is primarily focused at gaming or experiences, but it's not exclusively aimed at those areas. And already we're seeing art packages like Tilt Brush, which was the launch title for the HTC Vive and was actually bundled in with the early HTC Vives as well. Now, Tilt Brush is just a painting package really, but you've got quite a lot of versatility with it. You can choose different brushes, different palettes, even use things like light, and also sort of mimic things like snow and just various things really. But it's quite a basic package. But even that, it shows how we've come on even with virtual reality in this short time, because traditionally, even if you're creating some kind of 3D art on a computer monitor, it's still represented to you in a 2D format. So this is sort of one of the first times we've really been able to experience creating art in 3 dimensions as if it's in the room in front of us. It wasn't really possible in any other way before this. So you've got things like Tilt Brush, as I've mentioned, but also on the Oculus Rift platform, you've got Quill and Medium, and all these things vary in their complexity and what they can do. Medium, for example, is a sculpting package, so you can sculpt objects within 3 dimensions, use various tools to chisel away at them and create objects in 3D space. Tilt Brush and Quill are very similar, but again, they vary in complexity and just what they can do. But they're done in a way where you're using a more or less traditional methods to paint in the air before you to create 3D shapes. The problem I have, and I've enjoyed using Tilt Brush quite a bit since I've had my HTC Vive, but it always feels a little bit like you're creating this for yourself. You can get a little bit of satisfaction out of it. But if you want to show any of your creations to anybody, in order to show them the way it was meant to be seen in virtual reality, they need to put on the headset. So they need to view this piece of art in virtual reality using the headset. It's not really that easy to show somebody what you've created. You have to get them around, get them to put on the headset, load up your piece of art, and then show them what it is. So this is a problem for me, because I feel like when I'm creating a piece of art, I feel like, to what end am I creating this for? What purpose is there? And it's probably just a personal hang-up of that I have. It's not something that everybody feels, but it's just that you can't really display this art in a traditional way. It's not as easy to display in a public arena, for example. So everybody really needs to be wearing the same virtual reality headset in order to view it. And like I say, this is a little bit of a problem for me. It's not the same as just painting a picture and then hanging it on your wall, for example. So I think there's a limitation to it at the moment, although I've got to say it's a lot of fun just spending half an hour in Tilt Brush and doing some kind of 3D art. Even if it doesn't turn out particularly well, it's still an enjoyable experience. Design is another area that virtual reality can really help, and this is one that we've seen quite a lot of people talking about over the past few months and years. Actually, this has always been the case. Even in the sort of the first wave of VR back in the early 90s, I remember seeing various reports on, I was only young, but seeing things on sort of the shows like Bad Influence and these kinds of things, where they were exploring a little bit of what virtual reality could do at the time, things like Tomorrow's World, and they shown how virtual reality can be used for design. But back in those days, it was very, very basic 3-dimensional polygons that were being represented, but even then they could see the potential of this technology. Now we have sort of modern day VR, and it's come back all over again. We're already seeing things where virtual reality is being used for computer-aided design. Now, for me, I think this is a perfect medium for computer-aided design, because rather than using abstract ways to create objects and buildings, for example, or furniture within a computer screen, you have to use tools due to the format of the computer screen, you have to use tools which abstract the way that you can manipulate these objects. In virtual reality, it works in a different way. It's a more intuitive way to manipulate objects, view scale, shrink yourself down, shrink the object you're working on down and see it from all angles, rotate it round. Really explore sort of the intricacies of scale within it as well, exactly how it will appear in real life. So I think computer-aided design has got a lot of potential to work well with VR. We've seen things, I haven't actually used it, but there's a application, the IKEA application, which is available on Steam, where you can sort of look around various kitchens, see exactly the scale of things and how it will look, how it will feel to walk around this kind of kitchen design. And all of these things, I think, is a great way that virtual reality can be used, and the potential of this is really only beginning to be explored at the moment. And also architectural design, I think, is particularly well suited to VR. Again, as I say, scale is an important part of design. You need to see how things work in relation to other objects. So building design can work well because you can zoom right out, see the building from a distance, then zoom right inside and position yourself as if you're human scale within this building and see how all the rooms work, how the flow of the building works, and all of these things can be used to the advantage of the user. So virtual reality for me is particularly well suited to the area of design. Now, we often think of virtual reality as primarily a visual medium at this stage. You put on these huge headsets which cover your full range of vision, so really that's their main purpose at this stage. But the application of music production within virtual reality is already being explored by things like Soundstage, which is a VR music application that allows you to import and play sequences, synthesizers, drum machines, samplers, and all these things, and place them in a natural way around your room scale play space. You can then link them up very intuitively and manipulate them in a way. So again, I'll go back to what I said before about the computer-aided design on a monitor and the abstraction involved in that way of working. In music, there is, in these music applications that you can use to create music on traditional monitors, on using PCs, there's a great deal of abstraction in that, and it can create a big barrier to entry, really. You load up these recording programs or samplers or sequences, and they can seem quite daunting at first because it's difficult to wrap your head around all the different aspects of this software. With virtual reality and setting it up in a more natural and a way that you'd more expect it to look within real life, it lowers the barrier of entry. At least in my opinion, I think it can create a much more natural and intuitive way of working, and it can not sort of put people off quite so much. If they see a synthesizer in front of them rather than a abstract representation of a synthesizer on a monitor, then it can really help people get to grips with this kind of software. The other thing I wanted to mention about music software in virtual reality, it's not something where I see there's quite so much of a hang up in terms of, in what I was talking about, of visual art. Because, as I say, with the visual art, you really need to get people to put their VR headsets on in order to view it in the way it was meant to be viewed. With music creation, you can use virtual reality as a tool to create this music, but then you can export it and anybody can hear it in exactly the same way you want them to hear it. So it doesn't rely, the end product doesn't rely on virtual reality quite so much as visual art within virtual reality. And I think that's a positive thing on the whole, really. So overall, I think virtual reality can bring a lot of things to the world of art, design and music, but we're only seeing the very beginnings of this at the moment, as we are in almost every aspect of virtual reality. So I think it'll be an interesting future to see how these areas are explored further. So that's just a few brief thoughts I had on this subject, and if you've got any comments you'd like to leave below, then please go ahead, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That will be very much appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.